The Tigray, Ethiopia conflict. With an untold number of civilians dead and thousands fleeing to neighboring war-torn Sudan. The 2020 Tigray conflict has been regarded by the international community as a geopolitical nightmare, one that many foresee is bound to cause instability and violence across the Horn of Africa. But how and why did this conflict really start? In today's episode, we'll take you through the forces that are clashing in the Tigray region of Ethiopia and the ramifications that the country can expect to see. On November 4, 2020, amid surging COVID-19 cases, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali launched a military offensive against the Tigray People's Liberation Front, alleging that this was in response to an attack carried out by the Tigrayans on a national military base. The Prime Minister condemned the assault, saying that it had crossed the last red line and that his hand had been forced by the TPLF to take drastic measures in order to save the entire country and the region. In a televised broadcast days later, he also declared that Tigray had been bombed by the Ethiopian military, who then proceeded to destroy all the weapons and artillery they found near the regional capital of Mekelle. The Tigray People's Liberation Front, or the TPLF, had once been a powerful and influential political party that dominated Ethiopia for nearly 3 decades. Their grip over the country ended in 2018, when Prime Minister Abiy came to power and began introducing political reforms, most of which dismantled the TPLF's power and sidelined its leaders. These simmering tensions came to a head in November 2019, when the Prime Minister took apart the government's party coalition, which was led by the TPLF, to form the Prosperity Party. However, the TPLF saw this move as an illegal power grab and refused to join. Much of Ethiopia had been drawn to Prime Minister Abiy's commitment to peace and his willingness to apologize for the government's past abuses. More than that, the political reforms that he introduced brought fresh hope to a country long repressed. A hope that was intensified in July 2018, when a peace deal between Ethiopia and its rival, Eritrea, was announced. But underneath this changing landscape was increasing tension between the Prime Minister and the leaders of the TPLF, which erupted this year in 2020. Citing the COVID-19 global pandemic and its related safety measures, Ethiopia's elections were postponed, a decision that was firmly opposed by Tigray. Furious, the TPLF held their own elections on September 9th, in which approximately 2.7 million people participated. However, the Prime Minister acknowledged neither the elections nor its results, and even went as far as to threaten to pull the region's federal funding. Naturally, this renewed hostilities between the two parties, leading to the eruption of chaos in the Tigray region and beyond. The country's humanitarian crisis has gotten out of hand since November 4th, when the first move in the conflict was made. On November 12th, the world woke up to the devastating news that at least 600 civilians had been slain 3 days earlier in the small town of Maikadra, situated in the Tigray region. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission launched a 6-day investigation into the incident, reporting afterward that the killings had been an ethnically motivated massacre carried out by a local youth group called the Samri. Chillingly enough, the Samri had been supported, and even accompanied by a slew of other Tigrayans, including civilians, and the local police force. While eyewitnesses claimed that the TPLF was responsible for the indiscriminate murders, the political entity has continued to vehemently deny any responsibility. International news outlets have also reported more than 50,000 refugees fleeing to nearby Sudan in a bid to escape the violence. Many of them have claimed that local law enforcement, under orders from the government, were killing civilians en masse, oftentimes with the use of primitive weapons, like machetes and axes. In an interview with Al Jazeera, an Ethiopian refugee named Gawara said that the government wants to get rid of the Tigray people, so we fled. The people are living in conflict there. People have been slaughtered with knives. Pregnant women have had their bellies opened. The government is bombing civilians and killing us all." End quote. These claims of government-ordered massacres are supported by the findings of Human Rights Watch. In a report released in mid-November, the organization expressed concern that Prime Minister Abiy's administration was increasing hostility and violence towards Tigrayan civilians, particularly against those who were perceived to be linked to the TPLF. The government, however, has denied these allegations. By mid-November, the Tigray conflict had escalated so much that it spilled across Ethiopia's borders. On November 15th, Tigray Regional President and TPLF Chairman Debretsion confirmed that they had fired missiles at the city of Asmara, the capital of Eritrea. This, he claimed, was in response to Eritrea sending troops into the region, at the behest of the Prime Minister and his government. Based on reports from various human rights organizations, the statements made by the regional president were not unfounded, with Eritrean bombs hitting various targets in Tigray, while Eritrean conscripts fought alongside the nation's military force. More violent fighting occurred during the next few days, with the government seizing towns from the TPLF's territory, such as Adaga Hamos and Adigrat. These claims were contested by the TPLF, who asserted that these towns were merely bombarded but not captured. On November 28th, Prime Minister Abiy declared victory over the TPLF, claiming that the city of Mekelle had been successfully taken by the Ethiopian National Defense Force and that troops were now looking for the political party's leaders. Over the following weekend, allegations surfaced that regional President Debretsion had escaped to South Sudan, which led to tensions rising between the two countries. All South Sudanese diplomats were subsequently expelled from Ethiopia, while the Ethiopian ambassador to South Sudan abruptly abandoning the embassy. The TPLF has continued to contest the government's claims, asserting that they had only withdrawn from Mekelle to save civilians, and that their will to fight was far from subdued. These contrasting statements persist to this day. For instance, the government has maintained that peace and order were being brought back to Mekelle, while regional President Debretsion alleged that protests were erupting all over the city, with residents unwilling to be subjected by Ethiopian troops. Just recently, on December 8th, the Ethiopian government condemned a team from the United Nations, claiming that the shots fired at them were justified, since they had failed to stop at two checkpoints, while visiting the Shemelba camp for Eritrean refugees in the Tigray region. This incident is the latest sign of hostility in a month-long conflict that has seen nearly thousands dead, and more than 950,000 civilians displaced. Guns may have stopped blazing, and the air is no longer whistling with the sound of bombs being thrown. However, the violence is far from over. Many fear that these past few days are merely the calm before the storm. Besides the humanitarian crisis that the Tigray conflict has caused, experts have also projected Ethiopia's economy to take a massive hit in the next few months. As the second most populous nation in Africa and as one of the fastest growing economies in the world, it has unfortunately seen its growth forecast being slashed by the International Monetary Fund from 6.2% to 1.9%. And this was only because of the COVID-19 global pandemic. The events in Tigray had not yet unfolded when this massive reduction was made. Risk consultancy firm EXX Africa has also forecasted foreign investment in Ethiopia to slow down due to the month-long conflict, especially with reports of human rights abuses, state-ordered massacres, and the closure of media networks. This, combined with the coronavirus outbreak and conflicting narratives from the government and the TPLF, has left Ethiopia's economy up in the air. For the TPLF, the violent conflict that has shaken the entire Horn of Africa was entirely about defending their right to self-determination. For them, Prime Minister Abiy was at the helm of a one-man dictatorial regime that has threatened the unity of Ethiopia, a greedy and ambitious man with an insatiable thirst for power. The Prime Minister, on the other hand, sees the TPLF as a threat to the nation's peace and stability with their insubordination and errant behavior, undermining the authority of the government. According to Ephraim Medibo, a former official of the political opposition group, Patriotic Ginbot 7, quote, "The federal government did not start the problem, but its miscalculation of the magnitude of the problem and its utter reluctance to address it has exacerbated the problem and encouraged the TPLF to go its way. TPLF's disobedience and its claim that no one can tell us what to do have emboldened the ethnic forces elsewhere in the country." End quote. Both sides of the Tigray conflict undeniably have their own perspectives, values, and goals that they have deemed worthy enough to sacrifice their lives for. But at the end of the day, the only ones who have made sacrifices in this conflict are the untold thousands of either dead or displaced civilians. For more videos, visit T.R.A.P Eritrea on YouTube and T.R.A.P Eritrea's newsfeed on Facebook. Thank you for watching.